Call the meeting to order. Please rise for the pledge. On behalf of the Board of Education, welcome to our meeting this evening. We would just like to let you know that this meeting is being recorded. The recording will be available shortly. We would like you to know that if you have questions or concerns, that we strongly encourage you to utilize the Honeoye Central School chain of contact. This will ensure that topics that are of importance to you are directed to the appropriate person or people and can be looked into in a timely and efficient manner. Before we proceed, please make sure that your cell phones and devices are set to silent or off so that we may conduct board business without disruption. Jen, is there anyone signed up for public expression? All right, we have no one signed up this evening, so I will forego the speech for public expression. And we will move on to kudos. Does anybody have kudos?
But of course.
Go ahead, Jerry.
Okay, I was on vacation, but all the information I received about the Day of Caring said that it went off spectacularly, that students had a great time doing it, the community benefited. So a big kudo to the staff, the students, and the community members who helped make this event such a nice occasion for the district. It's a really great thing that we do. And this is the third year that we've done this, and it seems to be growing more and more every year. It's wonderful. Also, too, I missed this homecoming week with the PTA color run and the bonfire and the games. Congratulations again. A big kudo to all the students, the athletes, the other students, the parents, the community members, the Honeoye Fire Department for helping out. It just sounds like it went off wonderfully. And I'm sorry that I missed it, but a big kudo to all involved with that.
Anybody else?
I know
Go
Jerry
ahead.
said it. I just wanted to do an extra shout out to the maintenance and facilities people. They just above and beyond for all of the events that we've been having. They've been putting extra work, extra effort. So I just want to make sure that we give them a little extra kudo.
Megan?
I just want to give a shout out to Carrie Clements. If you haven't seen her, she's running around somewhere. She's been all over the place from the homecoming parade instead organizing all the events. I know that she got help from other members from the community and staff. So I just want to give kudos for her because she's been doing a lot of organizing for these events. Also, along with sports boosters, I think we've covered all the seniors this year in all of our sports. So far. So it's been a great turnout. I went to a volleyball game for seniors and there was a great group for soccer girls night and for boys girls night. There was a great group. Everyone was a bit well behaved and some positive cheering was going on. Also, I just wanted to mention the French students. I heard we have 21, which is more than Honeoye Falls, I heard, that we were able to house, which was amazing. So I want to give a kudos to all the families in our community that are housing these students. And I know it's not easy. It's another mouth to feed. So kudos to you guys for accepting them into your homes. We appreciate it.
Anyone else? All right, I just would like to kind of jump in with to see the collaboration between the community and the school with Day of Caring and all the homecoming events. Brought back a lot of memories of the way things used to be back in the 90s. But it's just nice to see everybody come together for the greater good, to help other people and to celebrate each other. I think that's extremely important, and it was nice to see it all recognized. I'd like to take the opportunity to thank the board for participating in the homecoming parade and in the Day of Caring serving lunch to the 6th through 12th grade. And then my last kudos is in June, we graduated a student who was going in the Army. And I would like to congratulate him. He is about to graduate on Friday from Fort Sill, Oklahoma for basic training. And some of our past graduates made their way this week to surprise him, not knowing what day exactly they were coming to be there for him on Friday. So I would like to say a huge congratulations to Chris for his accomplishment. And then he will be moving on to Texas after graduation on Friday. So kudos to Chris. And then we will have the Board of Education committee reports and updates. Does anyone have anything for that? Megan?
All right, just me. So I had a legislative committee meeting this past Saturday. We were meeting minutes to approve them, and there was open discussion for questions because they're meeting with Austin. I don't know if I'm gonna say his name, Austin Ponce, Rochester Finger Lakes Regional Director in the office of U.S. Senator Kristen Gillibrand. So we brainstormed like questions that are being repetitively asked. Another question was like, what's going on nationally with schools, not just here in New York State, but what's working nationally for their schools? So there's just some questions that we're going to bring forward to them. We discussed 2025 proposed penal law, section 130.97, regarding predatory sexual conduct by school employee, agent, or a coach. We were asked to give feedback on the law that's happening. It says until age 18. So it's not inclusive because we do have kids that aren't graduating until the age of 21, 22 sometimes. So we just gave feedback on that. And we worked a little bit on our state and federal proposition papers. Just looking at back from last year and kind of comparing what our needs are this year versus last year. So if you guys have any concerns, I know I sent out like a little survey for everyone already, but if there's anything additionally that you guys would like to see, that would be great. And we just close it with like upcoming meetings that we have, and that's it. Okay.
Anybody else have anything? Okay, then we will move along to the superintendent report. Superintendent Fluke, I will pass it off to you.
Okay. First, we have a big celebration today as we celebrate Board of Education Appreciation Week. So I just want to take a moment to thank each of you on the board for the time that you give, the tough decisions you make, and for all that you do for our school and our students each and every day. Thank you very much. Stay tuned for more surprises, however, as the night continues. I also want to shout out and give a kudos to everyone involved. Again, we mentioned it, but in Day of Caring. So this year's event was nothing short of incredible. We have managed to make it bigger and bigger every year, more community partners joining and coming on board. But the energy and enthusiasm that filled the auditorium on the morning of the event was just, it carried on throughout the day and each and everything that the kids did. So thank you for that. I also want to say how proud we are of the students for the way they represented our school throughout that day. It truly was a powerful reminder of the strength of our school community partnership. So thank you for that. Also, a huge thank you to our student council and their advisors for the work that went into planning homecoming week. It was a 7-day event this year, including the new Sunday kickoff event, the PTA color run. So thank you to PTA, and then the community bonfire, which, by the way, is something we have not done since 1978, or as some of our kids would say, since the 1900s. So great job again to Carrie, Carter, our student council members, and to everyone who helped make that week possible, including Amy Levesque and her team, Mike Kessler and his team. Okay, also a congratulations to our Honeoye musicians. So here you can see 81% of fourth grade has signed up for beginner band. 100% of fifth grade students are participating in choir this year by choice. 100% of sixth grade students are involved in band, choir, or both. 96% of students in seventh and eighth grade are in band, choir, or both. Okay, pretty amazing. 2 junior high students, Lila D. and William G., pictured below, and 1 senior high student, Owen H., have been selected for area all-state groups made up of the best students in a 7-county region. That's pretty incredible. And then another shout out to Owen H., who was selected as an alternate for conference all-state band made up of the best students in the entire state. So again, absolutely outstanding. We're so proud of their talent and hard work. If you see Owen, Lila, or William, please be sure to give them a big congratulations. Since our last board meeting, we welcomed several colleges who participated in the college fair. So feedback from both staff and students was very positive. We had it in the secondary library. It was packed with students, packed with colleges and representatives, and we're grateful to the counseling team for their work in setting this up. And before I turn it over to the members of our leadership team, I just want to take a moment to thank them and their hard work and all that went into organizing and planning last Friday's Superintendent's Conference Day. So thank you to them. And before actually, I wanted to say and I know they're going to be talking about this, Conference Day was focused on the science of reading, curriculum writing, data analysis. And again, here to talk more about that, please welcome Erica Esquino and Mikey DeVanzo to the podium. Thank you.
All right, we're good. Perfect. All right. So first of all, we just wanted to thank everyone for being a part of the Board of Education. We know it's Board Appreciation Week, so we wanted to acknowledge that. I hope you were able to see the wall of positivity from our elementary students to thank you and thinking that our board is awesome. There are also some cards that should have been left on your table for our National Honor Society kids at the high school. Wrote some letters to you guys. There's also the treat. And then in addition to that, our elementary students created a little video to thank you with the help of Bob Chavez. So Erica's going to go ahead and play that for us.
You can eat tortillas or you can pizza. Bacon. Bacon. Okay, this side of nowadays we get by spinning over. I think this roll the dice. I think it's like maybe somebody comes pick someone up from their house and then goes straight to the meeting place. Whereas to have extra recess. Get free ice cream on every Friday. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
So like I said, we just wanted to acknowledge board appreciation and thank you for all that you do. I always feel kind of ridiculous in this microphone when you're right here. All right, so we're going to talk a little bit tonight with some curriculum instruction and technology updates. I've broken it into the different components of the job so that you can see all the different things that were going on. So our first one is technology. So I would say our big update from the technology department is that we've really moved almost all of our forms, permission slips. We've gone to progress reports, 5-week reports, all digital in an effort to cut down on the amount of postage we're spending, how much we're spending on copying, and the amount of labor we're spending to package all those materials and send them home. So we created, and this is across the district, these are all of the documents that we were able to send out this year digitally rather than copying them all, packaging them all, and mailing them all. We had, I can say from the technology standpoint, like with the acceptable use agreements and the opt-outs, we had really great return on those. We only had to chase down a few of them at the end. And I think, and it was the first one that went out. So I think now when this starts becoming the way that we're doing things, we'll see, great returns on those. We did the day of caring permission slips actually that way, and they all came in. So we're seeing some really good interaction with that from our families. We also just last week, we sent 5-week reports out this way too. So they're coming via Parent Square in a secure fashion for families to open them that way. And of course, if anybody can't access them digitally, we will always send paper or provide a paper copy. So this was kind of one of our big moves this summer, was to switch this all over. The other thing is, I just wanted to pop up, this is my team, Zach and Jerry as usual, the father-son duo. And then as you know, Tammy Smith has moved over to support my department this year. We were also pretty excited this year. I'm entering my 4th year. And so my team was pretty excited because we really have put some systems in place about how we like people to put in their requests, right? So they put in a ticket for basically any of their technology needs. I've been tracking the data over the past 3 years, and we are usually the first week of school, so that Tuesday to the Friday, we are usually between 180 and 250 help tickets. We're busy. This year, we were down to 40. So it's a pretty significant decrease all of the sudden, but I attribute that a lot to the staff following the process. We've done a lot of pre-work with staff ahead of time on how to troubleshoot some of their own issues and to make sure they're checking things ahead of time so it doesn't become an emergency at the last minute. But this was kind of a really exciting piece for us because we were like, first week, we're like, well, what's going on? And kids are actually doing a really great job caring for their devices over the summer, even if it's just keeping them put in the case in the closet. We're not seeing a ton of repairs or broken devices coming back, which is awesome. There we go. So another aspect of my technology job is the data protection officer. This is the more like the cybersecurity role that goes with this. And so this is required by New York State. I know in the past we've done a lot of things around education law 2D and the components of that. One of the components of Ed Law 2D is that we have to offer staff training every single year around cybersecurity. So we actually offered 2 this year on our first conference day and our second conference day when we came back to school. I did one training with staff on our acceptable use and our technology agreement. We revamped those last year with the technology committee to include more things around social media use, appropriate use of school accounts, and making sure people understand, your school accounts and your school devices are for school use. You can use your personal accounts and personal devices for your personal business. So we were really trying to draw that line there. We did some training on that, and then we did our annual cybersecurity training, which is mandated by the state, We did that the second day. We did it, you can see in the picture, we did it in a little bit of a gamified way. When I provide training, I like it to be something that teachers can take the strategy and take it back to their classrooms and use. So we did giant Jenga building for one of them, and we did Connect 4 for another one. The other big thing that's going on kind of in this data protection world is doing all of our plan updates. So every year we have to go through, make sure we update all the pieces. So far I've done an incident response plan update. Those are just some of the components that go into it every year when you do this. When you sit down to do this is, probably a week's worth of time you're spending going through to make sure that if we were to have a cyber incident of any sort, this is all of the information you would need of every single vendor you'd have to contact, all the templates of the letters you'd have to go, who's your legal counsel. It's all of that information condensed into one spot around that. Before I go to curriculum and instruction, do you have any questions on technology? No? Okay. So couple of things in this era is we have done kind of a revamp on our new teacher induction process. We reset up what our orientation is going to look like. I put a couple of different pieces in there. As we are going to start seeing more and more new teachers here, we want to make sure that we have a robust induction program that is really going to support all our new teachers, because as well as we want to recruit the best staff, but we also want to retain them. And we can do that through making sure we're supporting them and giving them the resources they need. So you can see all the things we did on the first day. We really had more elementary staff this year. So we also did provide them with some literacy training to make sure they were caught up to speed with what we were doing. The PTA was awesome. They provided, you can see, they provided welcome baskets for each of them. So the teachers did like a scavenger hunt and they personalized all the welcome baskets. They had like pairs of socks, they got t-shirts, they got all sorts of goodies in there. And then they provided snacks on the second day. Another addition we added this year are monthly meetings. So they're going to have monthly new teacher meetings. It's really driven at this point by what their needs are. What are they expressing as areas of need in their classroom? So they get some time. I have them for about 45 minutes once a month to sit down and work on, what's coming up. What are you struggling with? Where do you need some support? So, yeah. I sure. Yeah, so Bruce Hawkins is on the left. He's teaching third grade. Cassidy Kirkpatrick started halfway through last year, so we invited the people that would have missed it last summer, 2 summers ago, to come in if they wanted to come. So Cassidy came for the first day. And then Lily Spitz is on the right. She's also teaching third grade. You got it. All right, so this has kind of been where a lot of my work has been over the past month. This is the slide that I showed you back in February when we first started rolling out the idea that we really needed to be moving toward teaching literacy through that method of the science of reading. If you remember, showed you some of the data, we talked through this, and at the end of the presentation, we talked about these are the things we're going to do this school year, and then we said these are our next steps. So I wanted to kind of circle this all the way back around so you can see where we have come since I talked to you. Well, I would have talked to you in June, but since this last piece, which was really around professional learning, grade level work, alignment analysis and piloting of a new curriculum, and looking at our assessment system. So first thing I want to talk about is assessment. If you remember at the end of last year, we talked about that we were going to pilot the DIBELS assessment, move away from iReady for ELA and move to the DIBELS assessment. These are really short 1-minute tests that are given one-to-one with a teacher. So rather than using a computer interface, you're actually interfacing with the child. What these tests indicate is it almost sends us up like, ooh, we should check that kid out some more. Or, oh, this kid's looking good. It's really more of a dipstick, almost, like to see where kids are at. Karen, you probably remember this from back in the day. So we piloted this in the spring and then decided to move forward with it this fall. The AIS team, which include Allison's here, these guys did all the heavy lifting. They tested every student in kindergarten through 8th grade, 1-to-1 with that team of 5. They saw every single kid and did all those assessment pieces with them. Any kids in K-5 that kind of showed up as like, oop, we should take a look at this kid, we then gave a phonics diagnostic test to. So then we were able to dig a little bit deeper to find what is this student's actual area of need. So we could really target what instruction was going to look like for each kid based on these assessments.
Was the phonics testing done face-to-face or is it done on the computer?
It's all face-to-face. It's all face-to-face, yeah. Which is nice. It gives a little bit of a different, you can really start to pinpoint what the issues are. Any questions on the assessment? Jerry, you good? Okay. You're having a look. So once we got all of that information, all of that data, the AIS team worked, it was a week, right? Almost a week. They took that data, we compiled all of it, and then we started thinking about how are we going to make sure we're giving all of our kids what we need. So Mikey and I worked this summer. We worked at the end of the year last year with the AIS team. And instead of offering like an AIS time in the day, we renamed it and we renamed it a win time, like a what I need time. So every kid during that time, regardless if they need AIS or enrichment, is getting what they need. So we took that data and we started putting together what these groups are going to look like, and they're fluid groups. So you might put a kid maybe in a phonics group, and then all of a sudden they're doing great. They can then shift to a different group. So these are fluid groups where kids are grouped by like need, and we've got different teachers offering the different supports. So we've got, on average, what would you say, like 4 to 6 teachers for every win time? Yeah, some even more. So we can then take kids that are split into 2 sections and divvy them up between 4 and 6 teachers. So we can really make small targeted groups to help work on skills that we need. So once this team worked together and we started forming those groups, and we're doing that for ELA and math, reading and math. We then met with every grade level. We gave some basic tier 1 recommendations. So based on the data, these are the trends we're noticing among most kids. Here's a couple tweaks in your instruction to think about to meet the needs of all your learners. And then we also talked about what will that tier 2 or that win time look like for your kids. And in the moment too, we were making some adjustments, adjusting some skills. And again, one of the big things is it has to be fluid, because as kids develop the skills, we don't want them stuck in a skill group that they don't need to be in, right? Or if we find as we get to know kids better, they're missing a skill, it's the same thing. We can start moving them around. We will have we called it like a mid-cycle meeting. So between the next benchmark, we're going to meet again with grade level teams to make any other adjustments we need to make into what skills we're doing, kids groupings and things like that. So we're constantly monitoring, constantly adjusting and moving kids to be sure they're getting what they need. Sound good? Any questions on that? Because this is new. No? Oh, I'm not done. Oh, there's more. So then the next piece, if you remember back to that first slide I showed you, is with our professional development. So we have contracted with Heidi Beverin Curry. She was originally from the Reading League. She was one of the founding members of the Reading League, which is a very well-known organization that leads a lot of the literacy work in the United States and actually overseas. Heidi kind of moved out and went on her own. She has a very extensive resume. She's doing a lot of the professional development overseas right now, like Ireland, Australia, in the science of reading. She and I made friends, and she agreed to kind of take us on as one of her local clients. She's from Syracuse. And so you can see up there some of the training we did. So we brought teachers in 2 days over the summer, where we really focused on how does the brain learn how to read and what is the evidence and research that shows us that this is the way it happens. We talked a little bit of RTI and MTSS. That's that tier 1, tier 2, tier 3 system. And then we talked about phoneme awareness and phonics. Heidi came back on October 1st and actually met with all of our grade level teams in the elementary, where we talked a little bit about the structure of their literacy block. Like, what are they teaching in their 70, 80, 9 minutes of reading time? She gave them, some recommendations on that, and some different strategies in order to get kids more time in text, have kids pulling the words off the page more. And then we also talked a little bit about that win time and making sure that, those skills we have targeted are what we should have, and making any adjustments there. And then she was back on Friday for the elementary staff, all of the special ed teachers, 6th grade teachers, speech paths. We had quite the group in here, and she did some work on the basics of handwriting, because that's an area we're also seeing right now that we need some focus on. So she did some basics on handwriting, vocabulary instruction, and strategies to get student time in text, and did some practical strategies about what teachers can do in the classroom. And then coming up, we have 2 more days with her. She is not able to be here at our March conference day, but we have worked out, she's going to be able to, Mikey and I are working on a elaborate plan to have her here and to do some release time with teachers. And then we have 1 more date, but I think with talking with Stacy Talon, I think we're going to use it to work with some special ed teachers and work on aligning IEP goals with the science of reading, so that we're making sure we're aligning all of our systems with the science and with that best practice. This is the last one. And then the last one is the curriculum piece. So that's the exciting piece that's happening this year. So right now we have an elementary literacy committee, which was PK3. That was where we started. If you remember last year, that was when the law came down from the state that everybody needs to be aligned with the science of reading. So we in PK3. So we started with that committee last year. We've just formed a middle level literacy committee for grades 3 through 8. So we can start looking at what would a comprehensive literacy program look like for PK through 8, and how are we making sure that we're taking that science of reading and embedding it into our instruction that is evidence-based and research-based, aligned with what New York State's expectations are. So these 2 committees, I already have a bunch of curriculums upstairs in the room. I've ordered a bunch of samples. What we're going to do is we're going to go through all of the research on them, all of the reports on them. We're going to look through the programs, making sure they're aligning with what we're looking for, with the teachers on the committee. And then hopefully we're going to have some publishers come, give some presentations. We're going to hope to get to 2. We'll bring some publishers in, and then we'll have people do some piloting and provide some input. And the goal would be that by the end of this year, we'll pick what we're going to choose to be our comprehensive curriculum, which would then mean the next year it'll be professional development around the implementation of that curriculum. That's the end. Did I get it? Okay.
I just have a couple of questions just for being, as a parent, I know parents are gonna ask, like, how are our report cards gonna be coming out? Cause like with iReady, it was like A through Z, this is where they're at with reading, this is where they should be, kind of a thing. What will that look like?
I'll let Mikey talk a little bit more about
Okay,
that.
sure, she's talking
But
about
we
that.
are looking at adjusting the report cards. So the standards, the New York State standards are still the New York
Right.
State standards, right? It's more around that our practice and our assessment is adjusting. I think parents are going to find the information coming out of this assessment way more useful in seeing where their kids' needs are and where their kids' strengths are. And teachers can explain, your child didn't do very well here, and that's why we're seeing this, right?
Okay.
Or this
So
is
will they
where we're
get,
working.
like a separate report then saying like, this is where their strengths are, this is where their weaknesses are?
There are different reports that can come off of those test results that can certainly be shared with parents. There will be a piece, and I think Mikey will lead that work around what we're going to share with parents at conference time, how it would be. I don't know if you're incorporating it on the report card at this point or not, probably not. But because it really is, it's more of an assessment piece that's not
a test that's it's not about their achievement, like
Right.
about the work they're doing in their class. It's really a screener at this point to see where are the needs so we can target that instruction, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
Okay.
I was just wondering, like, as a parent, are we gonna know, is it gonna show like, okay, our child is here, but they should be here, or they're below where they should be? kind
It
of
shows
more-
this test is, it's nationally normed, so it will compare a beginning of the year first grader against beginning of the year first graders nationwide.
Okay.
So what it does is it shows you what percentile the students are in.
Okay. And then does the same go for math, not just the reading, but the math?
So
portion too?
math right now, we're still doing iReady.
Okay.
Because this was kind of the push came from New York State on this, so this is where we moved first, because to shift two assessment systems that's a lot. It's just a lot. It would be a lot of adjustment for teachers too. We want to make sure that we're doing it slow, we're doing it right, and everybody understands what's happening. We are in the process, we have a couple teachers right now that are exploring some different ways that we could be doing that screening and benchmark assessment for math. So that is coming.
Okay, thank you.
That is coming. Yes, Jerry.
Erica, this is a wonderful presentation. Is there any way you could present this to parents in a community setting? Like essentially post a meeting? Because so many parents say, I get the report card and I get where my child is, but I don't know what they're trying to do. And you've explained it so well. I mean,
I'm more than happy to do whatever we would like. Yeah, I mean, we can talk about where the shifts are happening. I mean, Mikey can certainly talk about some of the revamping of the report card that we're doing.
Mhm.
But I do think this is going to lead into, it's going to look different, right? The way that we're teaching reading and writing is going to look different than it has in the past.
and we want parents to understand that.
Absolutely.
Oh, okay, the new math program that we've been doing for the last couple of years, and now the science of reading is really pushing students forward. But it'd be nice to let the parents know right up front, this is what we're doing, and this is what we're trying to get to, plus all this individual time that the students get if and when they need it. I mean, it's wonderful, I think, so.
And we're excited to see the student growth that it should come from this, right? Like we really are we're aligning with the research, we're providing that targeted time to build skills. We should see some good success. I'm excited to get a curriculum in place because that's when we'll really start to see the movement. One thing I do want to make sure that we're all on the same page with is an initiative like this. This is a 3 to 5 year return time. Okay, it's not going to be better in January. So we don't have a curriculum in place, but we hope to have one right by September. And then we would be looking at that 3 to 5 year time. So right now we're doing the capacity building with our staff. We're building our systems. So then we're ready to go when we can get that curriculum in place.
So Erica, in the past, as you know, the board has done data dives on this information. So how are we going to get that information the same way? Or will you be presenting on that, or will the building principals do that still? What's that gonna look like?
I think that's going to depend on what the board would like to see. I think iReady results are pretty easy to read, right? It's pretty easy to look at and you can see, the red, the yellow, and the green. Dibble's results look a little bit different because you're dealing with all the different subtests that are testing all sorts of different skills. So we can certainly do, these are the different skills. I mean, there would be a little bit, depending on how much you want to know and how much you want to see. Do you want to know what those subtests look like for a kid and what they're testing? Or would you rather me tell you this is testing this and this is how we're doing? So it really is going to depend on what the board would like to do. I'm more than happy to do whatever you'd like. If you want to do kind of more of a deep dive, or if you want to do more of, we just want to see what that data looks like.
Because I know we have an upcoming workshop, and we had a previous workshop in which it was brought up that now that elementary is in trimesters instead of the quarterly, and with this being a new platform for us, we have to discuss it once we get to our workshop, but if we can come up with what we'd like, I mean, we can let Superintendent Fluke know and then she could let you know. But I know that it was discussed that we were looking at possibly learning about more of it trimester wise, so that we could see, just
Mhm.
making sure that we're supporting what needs to be supported in ways.
Yeah, and I think it would be great for the board to understand what this assessment looks like. I know Karen, as a person who, was in it, it is hard to not understand the components to make sense of the end result, right? Does that make sense? And that's the piece you're gonna see, right? You're gonna see the end result. Obviously, at this point, we're at a baseline. We're getting our baseline of where our kids are. So we can look at the data now, but it's not really going to show the work that we're doing yet, right? We're gonna need some time on that. But I'm more than happy to meet with the board separately and teach you all the pieces, or anybody who wants to learn all the pieces. I'm more than happy to present the data, whatever you'd prefer.
That'd be awesome. So once we have our workshop, I'll let Superintendent Fluke know and we'll go from there. Awesome, thanks.
You got it.
Right now, we still have we have the winter and spring data presentations for you set up. We can certainly restructure those in any way that the board would like to see. So certainly, and I like that idea of presenting to the families. Some of what you're doing tonight, what you did last time with talking about Scarborough's rope and where that comes from, just to give them that background data. I think that would be useful as well. I also want to remind everybody, if you remember when Erica first came on board, she was initially tasked with restructuring and putting systems and structures in place for all things technology. So you remember all of the work that she put in there. Last year, her role shifted more to the instructional side, and this is what we're seeing. You can see how much work that she's doing, how much has gone into this side of her role. And in working with Mikey and working with Nate at the secondary level, thank you for all of the work that you did for Superintendent's Conference Day, the planning and preparation that went into that. But the committees that are being formed, the direction in which we're going, and really trying to include teacher voice along the way, the work with the AIS team and all that they're doing.
I want to give a shout out
Yes.
to that team, because they did a ton of heavy lifting, and I would send them an email, hey, can you guys meet on Thursday at 8 o'clock so we can, hash this out and figure out how to go. And like Nate and Mikey have been fabulous. We've already set the dates, but the fact that we were able to screen the entire middle school in 3 class periods is pretty incredible, compared to we were doing 3 class periods of each grade level to kind of get that iReady data. So this is quick. I think it's giving us a better field of data to target what our kiddos need. So.
And thank you to the AIS team. I know
Yeah,
that you
they
always give
have
credit
been
where credit is due, so thank you.
Fabulous. Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay, so that leads us into the reopening of schools for elementary. All right, so in August, we had UPK and kindergarten orientation. Parents were able to come with their children and learn about the day in a life of a student, visit the classrooms, go on a little tour, and take a ride on the bus with Ray Thomas. We've also offered a lot of professional development for our staff this year. So you'll see, like Erica said, we've done a lot of work around the science of reading. We have the development of our report card rubrics. So kind of, Megan, to talk about report cards a little bit. One of the things we were noticing is the way the report cards have kind of historically been, there's some flexibility, I guess I would say, on like, if it's a 3 over here, but it might be a 2 if I go across the hallway, so what does that really look like? So we have a team that is working on building rubrics for each of our cycles for the report card to see like, okay, these are areas that we are working on. What is the expectation and where would I be if I was on grade level at that point? Also looking to see like if we have a student that's in AIS, right? Then why are they getting 3s or 4s on the report card? Because historically, if I'm getting a 3 or 4 on a report card, I may not need to go to AIS, right? I might be more in enrichment. So really taking a look to help define that for parents. And then once those are completed, the plan is to put them on the website also. So parents can go in, click on that and see, okay, for November, this is the expectation. of where my child should be. And, ooh, yep, okay, I can understand why they're getting a 2 here, because in order to get a 4, this is where they need to be. So then the way it would create some alignment and understanding for parents, but also alignment for classroom teachers to understand what's really going on. And then like Erica said, also, we've also had our new teacher orientation. In terms of our professional development for staff, we also have had those monthly new teacher meetings that Erica talked about. Stacy Talon and I also did a co-teaching model presentation for all of our co-taught classrooms at the elementary level. Everybody was invited. We talked about the different models. There's 6 different models in case you're interested. And we're able to talk about the flexibility and when to use those within your lesson throughout the day and how those can change. In terms of CPR, first aid, and AED training, I spoke to Mary Beth, and she said in June, we were able to train 37 staff members district-wide. And then in September, we were also able to train another 15 staff members, and she's doing another training in November, and we already have people signed up for that too. So we have a huge portion of our staff that is now CPR, first aid, and AED trained, which is like amazing to me. And then we also have had a lot of conversations and a lot of some professional development, I should say, on the importance of making connections. And I know that's really Natalie's theme this year, is making connections and building relationships. So we tried to tie that in across the board. Elementary staff also had some PD this morning as part of our staff meeting on tiered systems for behaviors and what those really look like, and what are classroom managed behaviors, and then what are, times to call for a support call, and what is an administrative support call. So really being able to break that down for them and see what that would look like, and then aligning that to our code of conduct and our discipline practices. All right, so the week of September 15th was our safety week. Students across the district were able to practice our drills even when Rotary was here, so that was a nice little opening for them. And then at the end of the week, it concluded with our Deputy Jacobs being able to do a safety meeting for all of our students, and they were able to kind of check out the different equipment that he had, talk about why we do things. It was more like a question and answer session, so it was a really nice opportunity for the relationships to be continued to be developed, but also for students to learn about why we do what we do. Why do we have drills? And he was able to tie all of those pieces in, so it just worked really nice. All right, and then that brings us to Rotary. So Rotaries also come in September, and they're here this week. So they were here today and tomorrow, I believe, and they were able to donate this month. They are donating $10 to each classroom teacher. So we're always very appreciative of that. Then you'll see also our students also participated in the Day of Caring and our homecoming. Students at the elementary level do not leave campus for this, so they were able to help find other ways to beautify the school, or other ways that they could help give back to the community in some way. So our students wrote cards, like sunshine cards, for Thompson Hospital's Continuing Care Center, which will be delivered this weekend. And then they worked around the building planting, but there was also time for them to also build relationships within their grade level as well. Maybe. Okay, there we go. All right, and so that kind of leads us to our positive behavioral interventions and supports. This is our PBIS program. So this year, what we've really done is back in, I want to say May or June, we met with Melissa Reeves through BoCES, and she worked with us to go through a tiered fidelity inventory to see what we were really doing at each of the tiers and how best to support students. So one of the areas that we took a look at was for our PBIS program. So we had some things in place, but what are some other things that we could do to kind of get some more buy-in from students, right? And just help support those behaviors. So we have a heavy focus on the Bulldog 4, respect, responsible, safe, and kind, right? Those are the pieces we're going to be revisiting all year long. Once again, we're still continuing with our Golden Plate Award in the cafeteria. We also have our Student of the Month. Students love to be nominated with their classes. We have a pink communication ticket within the cafeteria, so it allows classroom teachers to know how behaviors are occurring within the cafeteria, maybe who's also doing really well and is kind of like the rock star in the cafeteria, and they're able to acknowledge that. We're also having, well, we did have, sorry, classroom meetings the first week of school to kind of talk about what those expectations were, not just in the cafeteria, but throughout the building, right? So if I'm in the hallway, this is what the expectations are. This is how I'm showing my pride. If I'm outside on the playground, in any other classroom, we went through everything. So one of the new pieces that we have done, and you'll see here, there's a little chart here, and every classroom has a binder that has a chart in it for every single student. And we have moved to a sticker/token system. So right now we're actually doing stamps instead of the stickers, and that seems to be working really wonderfully. But when students are being recognized for showing positive behaviors, and we want to continue to encourage that, they are able to earn a stamp on their chart. And the teachers have their own little systems of how they put that in. Once a week, somebody from the class is the responsible one, and they get to come down with the binder and they cash it into our office during their lunchtime. So it's not taking away from instructional time. And they're able to trade them in and earn prizes from our PBIS store in the office. All right. We have also partnered with the Little Free Pantry here in Honeyway to collect items for our holiday food baskets. So Brittany Sage and her pantry are collecting items so they can have holiday meals for our families for both Thanksgiving and for Christmas. So we're also in that process as well. And that ties into just being kind and supportive of your community. One of the things that we are doing that is new this year is October 31st. We realize it is Halloween, but we are kind of turning that day into our own fall festival. So with that, we're going to have some fall games and activities. There's going to be parent volunteers. Janelle Deal has said she would read a story to all of the kids and do some leaf rubbing activities with them. They're going to do some pumpkin picking in our courtyard. And there's going to be a little caramel apple station. There's going to be a hayride. And then, of course, the annual Halloween parade. All right, so some additional items that we've talked about. Erica's already discussed the wind time, iReady, and Dibbles testing that we've been through. We did implement a universal morning meeting, so everybody is having morning meeting at 9:10 to 9:30 each day. Within that, our support staff and special areas are also encouraged to go into those classrooms and to help support morning meeting and build community. And then they kind of rotate through different assigned classrooms. So everybody is getting that experience and you're building relationships with all of the kids and not just a certain classroom. And then 5th grade, we started our 5th grade morning announcers. So we have some students that come down, they do our announcements for us in the morning. We've also started field trips because pick and patch, Wickham Farms, and there's our walking field trip in Honeyway, which just took place yesterday. And we also had our fire department visits yesterday. All right, and then some extra pieces. We have partnered with Mosaic Dental. They've been back in. So we have been working with them to provide students that may be in need of dental services. We're working with Safe Harbors. They will be here at the end of the month to provide presentations for students. We're also still partnering with Ontario County Mental Health. So we do have somebody that comes in once a week to pull groups and to meet with students individually for families that may have more of a challenging time getting to their services. We've also continued our parent engagement committee. With that, we did recently send out a survey to see how what are some other ways that we can get families to be involved within the building, what times work best for them. You know, we recognize that everybody works. So just seeing like, when are we offering events? Is that why we're having a hard time maybe sometimes getting enrollment or for people to come to things and what that could look like? So we are in the process of doing those pieces and going through, but we do have some fun activities planned for this year. So we're planning in January to do more of a career day, looking into March with the possibility of doing like a winter fun day. And then of course, our family fun night in May. We've also done some student support team restructuring where we are really taking a look at individual students. We're inviting the teachers to come, share the information with about those students with us, and then also pulling in the data and looking at what is the attendance, what is the discipline reports, what are those showing, and help to determine next steps. And then we're also looking at staff community building opportunities. So with that, we are finding ways for our staff, since it's also part of, like I said earlier, Natalie's theme this year, with building community and building relationships, that we are doing it within our own staff, right? So not only are we building relationships with the outside community, but what are other ways that we can have our staff find time to connect with one another? So we recently did a coffee and conversations. And so we had a pretty good turnout, I would say, for that. And it was just a nice opportunity where staff could pop in when they had some free time and, you know, grab a coffee, grab a little snack, and just kind of touch base and build relationships with one another. And that's it. Any questions? All right, thank you.
Thank you, Mikey. I want to say too, just to thank Mikey for all the work that you heard that she's doing, but not only offering the academically rich environment, but giving our elementary students the opportunities to give back, to have fun, to be a part of a larger community. And then again, now trickling it up to our staff, we focus a lot on setting the tone in a positive way for our students with morning meeting. Now in doing that with our staff, I was able to attend the coffee and conversations. I couldn't believe how many staff members were there, and that kind of set the tone for myself too, to kind of start my day on a positive note. So thank you for all that you do. All right, next up, Amy, I don't know how you're going to top the last time you were
Yeah,
here. You had so
She's out
many
there.
exciting
Never
things
given me a
going
clicker
on.
before, so this is a big deal right now. Also, I'm glad we're not being graded because my slideshow is, yeah,
Very good.
we are not on the same level. So here we go. Here we go. Thanks a lot, guys. You guys worked on those together, didn't you? All right. I don't have a whole lot to talk about. Just kind of a little rundown of, you know, from summer until where we are now. We obviously participated in summer meals this year for the first time ever. That ran from July 1st to August 31st. At the end of last school year, we applied for a Fuel Up. It's a National Fuel Up Equipment Grant. We always just kind of put in for those things, not really expecting to get anywhere with them, but we did win the equipment grant. I went with the mobile smoothie machine. So we just got that in this month, and we're kind of hoping to test that out here soon and see how the kids like it. We also had the long process of purchasing a new walk-in freezer, and that was quite the process. That also included new electric to support the larger unit and a new concrete pad also, along with that really pretty Penske freezer truck that sat outside for a really long time. We just, of course, you know, because when you get something new, something breaks. We just had a new condenser unit put in on our walk-in cooler yesterday. That was done. I think it wrapped up at like 6:30 last night. So that was fun. We went without a walk-in cooler for about a week and a half. We were just using our big fridges in the cafeteria. It was like playing Tetris, right? Move a piece and kind of just balance it out. And we also teamed up this year with Preston Apple Farms, a local farm that is bringing us apples now up until we started in September, and they'll go all the way through till about March, they said. We are still participating in CEP. That application started, as you know, in December of 2023, and it runs until June of 2027. That's assuming we don't roll into universal meals or something crazy like that. Our ADP currently for breakfast is sitting at 396 meals. So that's what we are averaging right now. Every single morning, we're right around that 390, 398 mark. For lunches, we are sitting at 401 as our average daily participation. I threw up our enrollment numbers just so you can see like the number of meals we're serving at breakfast and lunch versus our student enrollment. And when I did my slideshow, I think it was 498. I feel like it might be 496 right now. I'm not sure. But that just plays into the meals that we're offering now versus where we were several years ago. Like, not a lot of schools our size are serving that many breakfast and lunch a day, right? Not with those enrollment numbers. It's not happening. So that's kudos to the kitchen staff. But it's also a lot of involvement with our kids, right? We send out surveys and we want to know what they want to eat, because I don't want them to just take their lunch, walk out the cafeteria, eat the piece of pizza and throw everything else in the garbage. We allocate a lot of our funds, our government funds, towards the DoD Fresh Fruit and Vegetable Program. We're not serving canned, we're not serving frozen. Everything is coming in every single Wednesday and it is fresh. And I think that ties into where you're seeing our breakfast and lunch numbers. The kids, they like the food and they're eating the food. It's not just going in the garbage. Back to the summer, this past summer, we participated in the summer food service program offered through CEP. The intent of the summer meals program is to offer grab and go meals, home delivered meals, and or parent/caregiver pickups. We offered meals to students essentially Monday through Friday, but we did meal pickups Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays just to kind of make it easier on families to not have to drive down to school every single day. We saw a lot of, obviously we didn't offer summer school this year, but kudos to Richmond Rec and their numbers. That played a huge role in how many meals we were kicking out every single day. We arranged the times from 8:30 to 10:30 so that parents could grab their meals and use those meals and drop the kids off to Richmond Rec wherever they were going for the day. We served 4,077 breakfasts and then 4,077 lunches for the month of July, which is, again, those are really big numbers for a school our size. In August, we saw it go down a little bit, and I think a lot of that had to do with the fact that Richmond Rec kind of dwindled down towards the end of August, knowing that school was approaching. We served 3,951 breakfasts and 3,951 lunches for the month of August. A big thing for us applying for the summer food service program this past year was New York State is encouraging schools that are in more rural type settings to participate. I think they're seeing a need for families in rural areas, not just cities, to have access to these meals. So we applied and we were approved. This is just showing you our mobile smoothie machine. Each of those little coolers there holds 36 smoothies. We'll push out a little survey and see what the kids want as far as smoothies, and then we can start offering them up at breakfast or as a fruit option at lunch. These photos are for you, Jerry. A little nostalgia here. So this is our old walk-in freezer. We had it for 28 years. It's a big deal. It was painted by Art Club back in the day when I was in school. So I took some photos. You probably won't see another painted freezer, so I wanted you guys to remember this one, okay? So this is just the process. These guys came in and piece by piece, they disassembled it, took it away. We were pretty excited because we thought our pad was in pretty good condition, which it was, but it didn't have the slope that we needed, hence having to get a couple quotes and have a new pad poured. This is just showing the old pad. It's pretty lovely, right? And then this is our new fancy, expensive freezer. Again, it is sitting on a new pad, and BoCE's came out and ran all new electric to it. It is 3 feet deeper and almost 2 feet wider. It glows in there if you want to come take a tour. It's not like the last one where you had to have your headlamp on your little hat to see what you were doing. And that's it. Any questions? Jerry?
When do we paint it?
Oh, maybe we could talk about a pretty fence around it. The problem with painting it is that it peels eventually, right? And this freezer is a smooth surface compared to the other one. They don't recommend painting it as far as warranty goes.
Okay.
So maybe when the warranty's up, we could talk about that. No
Thank
one
you,
else,
Amy.
huh?
I just want to say thank you for all that you do. It's not unusual to see Amy behind the register in the cafeteria, cleaning, washing dishes, cooking food, back and forth to the freezers in the classroom.
Yeah.
And then, so thank you for that, but all the work too, working this summer with Richmond Rec in what you said, but also working with our families who need the meals and reaching
Yeah.
out to them and making sure that they got it. If it was working with Ray to get a bus to drive it out, or just making sure that those families had their meals. So thank you for that.
Yeah, and that was a big thing too. We wanted to make sure families that really needed the meals were taken care of, whether that meant that that was a mom at home with 5 kids that couldn't come down to school to get her meals, right? It didn't, even if it meant off the clock, we're delivering meals. Like they got meals every single day. It was huge. It was good. So.
Amy, I gotta tell you, one of the girls I watched tonight told her mother that you ordered Chinese for everybody for lunch today.
I love that. Yes. Yes. Today was chicken lo mein day.
Yes.
You Cindy Wong liked it, so I know I'm doing good, right?
All right. Any other questions for Amy? All right. Thank you very much. All right. And I know we have some handouts. Did everybody get their handout at this time? We would like to invite Tom to the podium to review our financial executive summary. So Tom Zuber, thank you so much.
Good evening. Is it gonna be up or no? Get the next slide. Hey, look at that. Great. Can everybody hear me okay? All right. Well, we'll try and keep this fairly brief. It sounds like you've had a pretty busy evening. But again, I'm here to talk about the June 30th, 2025 basic financial statement, so the audit of the school district. In addition to that, the internal control communication. So you should have received those in your board packets. I'll just kind of walk through a few highlights. In terms of the basic financial statements, there's a lot of good information in that. So the audit report's roughly around 60 pages long. Okay. So we did issue an unqualified opinion, no material weaknesses, no significant deficiencies. So that's really what you're looking for in the audit. That's the audit opinion you're looking for. Again, not having any material weaknesses or significant deficiencies. Again, very positive from the audit side of it. And so again, a lot of good information in that thick basic financial statement. So what we do is we pull out some of that information, some of the key information, and this is something you should be familiar with. We've talked about the executive summary before, and the summary information does come right out of the basic financial statements. And again, we give you 2 years worth of information just for comparison purposes. We'll highlight a couple of the significant items from 1 year to the next. And of course, if you have any questions from the basic financial statements, feel free to ask and we'll try and react to those questions. Okay. So again, in the snapshot, just a couple things to note. Again, 24, 25 information, just to take a look at. Total assets in the general fund, again, a little over $10.6 million. The end of the year with, again, 9.6 million really relates to cash equivalents or your cash and investments that you have out there. You've got some receivables. It's primarily your state aid receivables, some BOCES aid receivables, really nothing too unusual there. Those dollars have been received as of this point, as most of those dollars are coming in August and September. So those have been received. You've got some prepaid items, 283,000 that relates to health insurance. That bill's due in July. You make that payment in June, so that sits in there as a prepaid expense. Okay, really nothing too unusual there. The middle half of the page, the $1.2 million total liabilities, so what you owe. Okay, so again, a little over $1.2 million. A couple of the items to note there, really, none of the variances are really unusual from 1 year to the next, mainly operational in nature. Couple of items to note, the due to retirement system, that's $780,000. Again, as you know, the district participates in the New York State Teachers Retirement System and Employee Retirement System. So those systems basically say, here's the rate, please pay it. Okay. So as you know, what happens is each payroll you process and you set aside your share of that liability in this account. And then in the fall, it gets paid to the retirement system. Okay. And you can see that those dollars are up just a little bit from last year because the rates are up just a little bit. Okay. So again, nothing too unusual there. One of the other items just to note that compensated absences, that $90,000 there, those are just the as a result of some of the changes in the new accounting standards, we have to just modify the way that the compensated absences is reported. So again, that's why you see that going from $90,000 down to zero. Okay, so again, that's something that all the districts had to implement this year. So really, it's just a reallocation of those liabilities down into the employee benefit accrued liability reserve, which we'll see in a second. So again, really nothing too unusual there. You see that deferred outflow of resources going from 45,000 to zero again. That's one of those areas where you had some lease items that you had to do some accounting and reporting for, and those expired or those didn't continue. So again, nothing too unusual. So on the assets and the liabilities, we then look at the fund balances, as you know, probably one of the more important pieces of the financial statements. And again, at the end of the year, the district ended with about $9.3 million in total fund balances. So as you know, those fund balances consist of a couple different categories, your non-spendable categories. So those fund balances that aren't in spendable form. So again, that's primarily your prepaid expenses, right? The cash is out the door. You can't spend those dollars again. Okay. Your restricted fund balances, those are primarily your reserve accounts. Okay. As you know, those reserves are there based on either general municipal law, education law. So again, you can see some activity there. We'll talk about that in a minute. Those reserves are important, so we dedicate a whole page to the reserves and talk a little bit more about the reserves in a minute. Okay. Got some encumbrances. Again, those are just commitments that from one year to the next. You've ordered the goods, they just haven't come in yet. Okay, so again, nothing too unusual. And then that bottom number, that unassigned fund balance, that's that 4%. So what you can carry over from one year to the next based on section 1318 of real property tax law. So again, you're right at that 4%. That really is where you want to be at the end of the year. So again, that's very positive from the financial statement standpoint. But overall, you can see from 2024 to 2025 that the overall equities went up about $500,000. You see that second number on the right, the overall increase in your fund balances from one year to the next. And again, primarily that change is in the reserve categories, which we'll look at next. Okay. Any questions so far on any of the financial information? Okay. Just a kind of further discussion on the reserve accounts. As you know, each of the different reserves are based on, we categorize them based on certain areas. So again, we have the operating type reserves. So your retirement contribution reserve, your TRS and ERS reserves, workers' comp, unemployment. So again, you have annual recurring expenditures in those categories. So you've got some dollars set aside for those. Again, very positive reserves, especially the ERS and TRS reserves, because as you know, I mentioned those systems, they basically say, here's the rate, please pay it. So you have these reserves to help offset any spikes in those rates. So, and again, one of the challenges, as you know, is any 2% or any rate increase up to 2% is not excludable from the tax cap. So you have to absorb those rate increases in your operating budget. So as you know, if the rates go from 10% to 11%, right? The rate might only go up 1%, but when you apply that to your salaries, that's a much larger percentage impact on your budget. Okay, so that's where these reserves come into play. So again, very nice reserves to have relating to those systems. Again, the workers' comp, unemployment, again, very flexible reserves. So again, very nice to reserves to have. Again, a couple of the other reserves, the employee benefit accrued liability reserve, again, I mentioned that already. Those relate to the vested benefits. So you have employees, if they retire and they get paid out vacation or sick days, you've got some dollars set aside to allocate dollars out of there. Again, you can see some dollars came out of the reserves. In fact, you reallocated some of the dollars from the employee benefit accrued liability reserve down into the building reserve. So again, you can see that there from one year to the next. Again, and with the building reserves, those capital reserves, again, a little more restrictive. As you know, the voters vote to create those reserves. You set caps on those reserves, the voters do, but then the board funds the reserves and then the voters vote to utilize those reserves. And as you recall, last year you did allocate some dollars out of your building reserves for the voter-approved project. Okay, so not last year, but 2 years ago. Okay, and we'll see that in a few minutes. But again, you've got some dollars in that reserve still to help for future projects. And again, the nice part about those capital reserves, right? You can utilize those reserves to reduce the impact to the taxpayer as you go out for a project. So again, very, very beneficial in the long-term planning of the school district again. And again, those reserves there, really, they're created and approved by the voters. So they've already said, we want you to have these reserves. Okay, so again, very important reserves. And the last couple of the liability reserve, again, for anticipated liabilities. Again, really nothing unusual there. You also have a debt service fund that has some old unspent capital projects, interest earnings on those. So you do budget and utilize some of those dollars as part of your long-term plan. So again, we'll talk about that in a few minutes. But overall, you can see you've developed the reserves, you utilized some of the reserves as part of your budget process, and then you reallocated about 364,000 back into those reserves. So again, I mentioned you're using the reserves as part of your budget process. So in 24-25, as part of your budget process, you allocated about $379,000 in reserves to support your budget process. You can see for 25-26, that's about 640,000. So you did bump that up a little bit from last year to this year. Again, the thing to remember is in order to break even, right, you have to generate budgetary surpluses equal to that appropriated fund balance in the general fund. Okay, so for 25-26, just to break even, you have to generate a budgetary surplus equal to $640,000. Okay. All right, so that's really important. We'll talk a little bit more about that. But again, that was part of the budget process you go through each year. Okay, so do you have any questions on the reserves right now before we kind of talk a little bit about where those dollars came from that you're able to allocate into the reserves? Okay. So just real quick on the revenue and expenditures, again, on a $19.8 million budget, you collected $19.6 million. So you collected about $143,000 more than you anticipated. Really nothing too unusual in here. Again, really the one item to note really is ends up in that miscellaneous category where you do see some positive variance of about $415,000. Mainly that's the BoE surplus refund. So that's the result of their 2024 audit that you get distributed back in 2025. So it's very difficult to predict. You also did get some additional E-rate money that was allocated from BOCES to the school district. So those were the two key components there, okay? The other thing just to note that use of money and property, again, you've done a nice job in investing your funds, okay? But the key to remember is of that 477,000, about 340,000 is restricted. Okay, those dollars end up going back into the reserves. So when we mentioned the dollars that are allocated into the reserves, you see in this revenue column here, just on the slide, you see the 347,000 going into the reserves. That's interest earnings. Okay, so just to be aware of that. So just something to note. But overall on the revenue side, positive $143,000 in returns, positive variance on the revenue. On the expense side, again, on a $20.6 million budget, you spent about $19.2 million. So again, you spent about 90% of your, or 93.3% of your budget. Okay. So again, as you know, a lot of challenges that school district faces on the expenditure side of the budget. But again, you generated a positive budget variance from last year to this year, about $1.3 million. Just to note that the biggest area there in that instructional category, 503,000 of that, about 200,000 relates to special education or handicap services. Again, one of those areas that's a little difficult to predict because one or two students moving into the school district could impact that line significantly. So again, just a note there. The other areas just in the benefits, that 543,000. The biggest component of that is health insurance. And again, that's an area that I'm sure you're going to hear more about as you go forward in the next couple months in the budgeting process. As you know, we continue to see some challenges in the benefit area. So, we are seeing some significant increases in benefits. So we may not see those positive variances going forward. Okay. But overall, I mentioned in the beginning that your overall fund balances went up about $510,000. So again, you can see, you take the expenditure variance plus the revenue variance. Then you did appropriate reserves, right, in order to balance your budget, right? So you have to reduce that surplus by that. And one of the other things you did is the board did approve utilizing about $750,000 to support an emergency projects during the year. Again, that comes out of that surplus small encumbrance change to get to that $510,000 positive increase to overall fund balance. Okay, so just to be aware of that. Again, this is that area where, you would want to generate about a $640,000 positive variance next year on the revenue and expense side of the budget just to break even. Okay, so this year you generated more in that variance, and that's where you were able to allocate some of those dollars into the reserve. Okay? Any questions so far? All right, so that's the general fund. So obviously the major operating fund of the school district. We'll go a little bit quicker on the next couple slides. As you know, the school lunch program, so I think you just heard a little bit about that, continues to do very well. You are within the federal reporting requirements. You're allowed to carry over up to 6-month average expenditures. That actually changed this year. So effective July 1st, 2024, it went from 3-month average expenditures to 6 months. So you can carry over a little bit more in that program. So again, you're doing very well in there. Again, having all of the students able to get free meals and free lunches really does help with that program. The more participation you get, the more reimbursement you get from the federal government and the state government. So again, very positive there. Miscellaneous special revenue funds, those are just some minor scholarship programs, some other restricted revenues, nothing too unusual. The special aid program, just the point here is this is an area where you have additional expenditures relating to instructional programs, but these expenditures are primarily grant funded. So not only do you have expenditures in the general fund, in the special aid fund, you have certain expenditures, and this is where those title programs are. Your 611, 619 summer school handicap preschool program. So these programs are all funneled through what's called the special aid fund, and you can see those dollars are down from last year to this year. If you recall, we're really at the tail end of the stimulus funds, so they're gone, right? So this is where those stimulus funds, I think you had about a $385,000 you spent last year, and so now there's no more stimulus funds, okay? So I think they started in 2021. So 4 years later, they're all gone. All right. But the key here is that these are grant related expenditures that are outside the general fund. And one of the areas you want to pay attention to right now is what's going on at the federal level, right? Because if there's some changes at the federal level and some of the programs may not continue, then you may have to make a decision. If you like the programs that you're currently doing in these grant funds, you may have to reallocate those dollars over to the general fund if you want to continue the programs. Okay, so that's where these expenditures are housed in this special aid fund. So again, just to be aware of that. Okay, and then the last item, the capital projects and the debt service fund. We've talked about those. The debt service and the capital project. You can see you have a little over $4 million. That's remaining from some of the dollars you allocated last year. You see in 2024, you brought $404.4 million over. They're primarily from the capital reserve. And then this year you brought over 850,000. So that's the 750 emergency project and then the capital outlay projects that you're allowed to do. So again, those dollars will be spent probably this summer. Okay. So again, those are the operating funds. Any questions on the operating statements at all before we touch base on this last statement? Okay. So the last statement, this is where we try and make the school district look more like a corporation. So the Governmental Accounting Standards Board, the GASB, they dictate how these financial statements look. So what we have to do is we have to consolidate all of those operating statements. And on the top half of the page, we have to include all of your capital assets. So your land, building, vehicles. In the middle half of the page, we have to include all your long-term obligations. Okay. And on the bottom half of the page, we have our net position, right? And again, I think a couple of positive things that we see from this statement is that your total net position, $24 million, that's great, okay? That's very positive from the financial statement standpoint. A couple of the items to note, though, is just above that, you see that negative $1.2 million, okay? What does that mean? Well, that's a result of that very bottom number, the retiree health obligation, so that OPEB obligation. And what that is that it relates to your contracts and what you've committed to your employees in retirement. Okay, so really you have an actuarial, they come in, they look at your contracts and they do some calculation. They basically said you've committed about $3.3 million to your employees in retirement. Okay. So again, you have to recognize that liability, but New York State doesn't allow you to fund it. You have a liability, you can't fund it, and that's why you see that negative $1.2 million. Okay. And not really unusual in many districts. In fact, we have districts where that number, that net position number is a deficit. Okay, so that they have more liabilities than assets. Okay. The other thing, so what that tells me is that you folks have done a really nice job in managing that over the years. Okay, so I think that's something to just take away from this statement. The other thing to remember here is this isn't how you operate. You operate on a pay-as-you-go basis with your retirees. So if you have a $500,000 expense for your retirees, you budget it in the general fund and you pay it in the general fund. Okay. So that's just key. This is really for financial reporting purposes, but it does tell a very positive story for the district. It does tell that the district has done a nice job in monitoring that obligation over the years. Okay. So again, that's the numbers piece of the financial statements. Any other questions on that before we touch base on this last slide? Okay, so the last slide just really relates to the internal control communications. So again, as part of any audit, part of the process we have to go through, we have to interview, document, just the different processes and procedures that you have over the different financial cycles. So, for cash disbursements, how does a requisition get created and entered into the system and then approved by the purchasing agent and then ordered, and then when do the goods come in? What are the checks and balances over that process? So again, I mentioned no material weaknesses or significant deficiencies. Just a few minor procedural items that we noted. Again, one of the items relating to adults and charging meals, and just want to be careful of that. I know you had one older balance that was on there. So again, just make sure you're monitoring that. And we had a couple instances where the deposits weren't made to the bank. Again, we auditors, we like to see them getting to the bank 3 to 5 days after it's collected. So again, just that's the best and safest place for them. So again, just best practices there. Again, very minor items. So again, not material weaknesses or significant deficiencies. There were a few prior year items that we talked about last year that the district implemented. So again, very positive from the audit standpoint. It shows that you're reviewing our recommendations, you're making corrective actions. So again, very positive from the audit side of it. Okay. So that's a 65-page document in 15, 20 minutes. So again, if you have any questions on that document, I'm happy to respond to those. Yeah.
Just some comments, Tom.
Mhm.
I believe last year, we spent 98% of our budget, if I remember correctly from your presentation.
Mhm.
And this year, you mentioned we spent 93, which I believe is closer to what you want to see. You don't want us to spend almost like 100% because that doesn't leave anything to fund our,
Reserves and
Our
things of that
reserves.
nature. Yeah, yeah. Yeah,
Yes, sir.
so I can't speak, I don't have the numbers for last year in front of me. I think the only number I have is he had about a $1.1 million variance, I think, last year. But again, those variances, what they're there for, right, is you have a budget, right? In this case, your amended budget was about $20.6 million. You can't, this is like the Price is Right. You can't go over that budget. So generally, you do want to see some savings on the expenditure side of the budget, okay? And again, when we talk about appropriating fund balances and reserves, right? So you appropriated $640,000 this year in fund balances and reserves, right? So you have an expense budget, you have a revenue budget, and you have a gap. You're filling that gap with appropriated reserves of about $640,000. So again, you want to have a positive budget variance of $640,000 just to break even. So yeah, you do want to see some surpluses there, right? And again, how you manage that really is dictated by what you're appropriating, because the more you're appropriating in fund balances and reserves, the larger surplus you have to have just to break even, right? Otherwise, you begin to erode fund balance, right? And you can erode fund balance as long as it's planned, right? But as you begin to erode fund balance, it's that slippery slope. Once you start to go down that path, how do you wean yourself off of it, right? So yeah, I think, generating budgetary surpluses, every district's a little different. Some districts look to 3 to 5% of a budgetary surplus, but again, it depends on how much you're appropriating in reserves and fund balance as a percentage of your budget.
But we also had an unexpected expense of $750,000.
Mhm.
And it looks like by managing our budget correctly, we were able to replace that money.
Yeah,
So.
yeah, no, I think that's true. You're able to utilize some of those dollars. So instead of having to bond for an emergency project, if that's the direction that would have ended up going in, right? You're able to use the available dollars to tackle that challenge. And lots of times those emergency projects, and I don't know specifically, do generate state aid. You may not get that state aid back the following year, but it might come over the next 15 years, depending on. So again, very beneficial because you were able to use those dollars that you saved in your budget, and you're really generating future cash inflows, right? Because you won't have a future expense for that. Whereas if you bonded it, right, you would have future debt payments for that. And then state aid coming in against it. So really a net zero impact. Whereas now you're going to have state aid coming in for those decisions you make. So again, that's that fund balance that you have, that unassigned fund balance. That's kind of where some of those dollars go. And so you use those dollars, and then because you had budgetary savings, it replaced those dollars. So yeah, you're absolutely right there. Okay. Any other questions? Great. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. As questions arise, because they may, as we look more in depth at the document, we'll reach out if that's okay, if
Oh,
we have any
absolutely.
additional questions. Okay.
Yep.
So to
Any
the board
questions you
members
have,
here,
any-
please. Okay.
Yep,
Excellent.
just reach out, and I'm sure either yourself or Derek can let me know, and I'm happy to even come back and react to any of those as well.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you very much.
Thanks. Have a good day.
Too. Okay, so again, as you look at the materials provided by Tom, if you have any additional questions, please feel free to reach out to myself or Derek so we can get those questions to Tom, or we may be able to answer those. All right, I have the clicker. Yes. Let me do that while I get the clicker.
So I will need a motion to accept the audit findings.
Jerry moves.
Okay, second.
I'll second.
All right, any discussion? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, that's carried.
Okay, so I have two quick updates. First, we are excited to announce that we are positioned to move forward with the playground build. So I just wanted to give a quick update there. At this time, we are a little bit short the numbers for a full community build, but we have the numbers for a hybrid build. Now, I am confident that once we officially partner with Play by Design, that they will be coming out here and that according to them, traditionally they get a lot more volunteers. So they were already really pleased with the number of people that have already signed up to participate in the build. We have over 80 volunteers already. Several of those volunteers are for the committees only. And remember, we needed 80 volunteers for the actual labor portion of the build. I am confident that we will get that. However, without the numbers at this point, we were able to move forward with the hybrid build. An important date for everybody to put in your calendar, November 10th. So Monday, November 10th, Play by Design will be here. That is the design day. So that is the day they come, they talk to our students, they gather information, and we'll be starting that process of gathering information. But they'll be here, they'll be meeting with students K through 6. We will be gathering information from all of our students and all of our families prior to that, and they will be utilizing that and the information they gather that morning to have a reveal party, which will be on the evening of November 10th. So that's a very important day. So if anybody is watching this and wants to participate in the build, please put November 10th on your calendar, 6 p.m. here at school, location to be determined. I'm hopeful we're going to need the auditorium because there's going to be that many people coming to participate in the community build. Okay, so even if you've signed up or if you're interested, either way, please plan to come to that meeting. A playground tab has been created, as I talked about last time, that has been created. I'll be meeting with Bob and some of our committee members tomorrow to start populating that tab on the website. Okay, and then lastly, I want to thank everybody who filled out the strategic plan survey document. We received many thoughtful responses that will help guide our next steps as we share our roadmap to 2030 together. So thank you for that and more to come. All right, that's all from me. I'm turning it over to Derek for our business office updates.
Hello. I just have two updates. I missed the agenda setting meeting because I was at Wing Finger Lakes BoCE's talking about what is the Early College Access COSER. This is a new program that was put in the New York State budget about the state wanting to get individuals getting access to college all the way up to 55-year-olds, but how it pertains to us is there's an opportunity for us to receive additional BOCES aid for our already existing Gemini courses that our teachers teach through Flick. So based off of a calculation working with our high school principal and figuring out what teachers are teaching what college courses, this has the potential to generate an additional $170,000 in BOCES aid for next year. And it has a lot of great things. So in addition to that, we were going to incur an additional $11,000. 8,000 of it is our BOCES fee for doing the COSER. They're going to have people staffing this to manage the program. But in addition to that 8,000 is $3,000 roughly is what we estimate is the district, in order to participate in this program, the district has to pay the college fees, which is, I think, $7 per credit hour, $21 per credit course. It wasn't in our original budget, but for $11,000 to get $170,000, it made sense. It breaks down barriers and gives more access to students. So there are students sitting in these classes that may, for whatever reason, did not sign up to get those college credits. Now, if that $21 was a barrier, is no longer is. So that's great news, that it's already programs we're running. It could help our budget for next year and could possibly potentially expand that program. In addition to that, EV bus update. So in July, we had our second annual survey update. So every year we have to report to the state on where our progress is towards electric buses. So that was submitted. It didn't get kicked back, so they were happy with that. And in the near future, we were told it was supposed to be out already, but it's not, but it's due by December 31st, is the first of two-year extensions for the electric buses. We do intend on applying for the first 2-year extension. You have to, again, demonstrate that you're working towards the conversion, which we believe our Cornish study that we utilize BOCES to do. They're examining our grid, looking at our bus routes and how much electricity we would need and whether or not the electric buses can handle this. We believe that that will grant it or give us that 2-year extension. So we're going to have to file information through our portal, which I just submitted our audit through, and it's got to be approved by NYSERDA. After that 2-year extension, there's a follow-up 2-year extension, but nobody knows what the criteria is to meet for that. What I did ask, and I learned, it does not change the 2035 deadline. It only changes the 2027 deadline. So all it is kicking the can, essentially, but we still, at this time, still need to fully convert by 2035. Any questions about the early college access coaster or the EV bus? Great.
Okay, thank you. Looks like we are at the point of the district plan. So I would need a motion to approve the 25 to 2027 special education district plan. Can I get a motion for that?
I'll move.
A second?
I'll second.
Is there any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? All right, that's carried. Consent agenda. I need a motion to approve the minutes from September 17th, 2025 and the CSE minutes.
I'll move.
A second?
I'll second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? All right, that's carried. Treasurer report. I need a motion to approve the treasurer report for June of 2025.
I'll move.
Second?
I'll second.
Any discussion there? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? All right, that's also carried. Moving on to personnel, we have tenure. Upon the recommendation from Superintendent Fluke to grant tenure to Rachel Davis, school psychologist, effective November 15th, 2025. I would need a motion to approve.
I'll move.
Has a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? All right, that's carried. New business, old business, we have invoices. I need a motion to approve Capital Region BOCE 068-26F and SWBR 000241980S. Motion? And a second?
I'll second.
Is there any discussion there? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, that's carried. Contracts, we have 3 contracts. If it's okay to take those all together as well. Is everybody good with that?
Mhm.
Okay. I need a motion to approve the Honeoye Wayne Finger Lakes BOCES Early College Access Agreement for 2025, Agreement STAC and Medicaid Trainer, and the Norman Howard 25-26. Motion?
I'll move.
A second?
No, I'll second.
Is there any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, that's carried. Then we have obsolete items. Upon the recommendation from Superintendent Fluke to declare the items as obsolete and to discard, we have items from the Special Education Department and the Technology Department.
I'm sorry, can we back up?
Mhm.
For the employment contract for the Medicaid trainer, it says Penny Jones.
Yep. So part of what Penny Jones did while she was here was the stack and Medicaid part of her role, and that's very specific. So we have worked with Penny to have her come back to
Okay.
train the new
That's-
person. So there'll be some days when Penny comes specific to that training. So if she's here as a sub, she would get a sub rate. If she's here specific to training on stack and Medicaid, it would be for that.
Okay, I just wanted to confirm. Thank you.
Okay, moving
Sorry.
back to, it's okay, obsolete items. We have some from Special Education Department and some from the Tech Department. Can I get a motion to declare those obsolete and discard?
Oh, almost.
Second,
I'll second.
is there any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Right, that's carried. And then we have capital improvement project. We have an invoice from Tamco, number 2025-494. I need a motion to approve
I'll move.
and a second. Is there any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? All right, that's carried. Comments from the Board of Education? Does anyone have anything for this?
I
Jermaine,
do.
go ahead.
I just wanted to see if the board would approve me signing up for the conference that is on the 29th, I want to say, or no, I'm sorry, 26th to the 29th. It's the same conference that Tori signed up for last year. She had a room in the school where everybody could come if they wanted to and go through the seminars with her. It's $250, but all of the seminars are available indefinitely for the rest of the board. There's 35, I want to say, different courses. So I guess I would like to be the one to sign up for it. And I suppose if we want to, we could try to do the same thing we did last year.
I will say, I think that's a good thing to attend. Megan attended, I think, a couple sessions with me last year. I am glad that this year they've made the improvement where you can go back. Because I don't recollect that happening last year where they had a lot of links during the virtual learning. And well, you're trying to write all those down, so it didn't work very well. So I'm glad that they have those. So we would need to vote on that, being that it's a $250 charge. I'm supportive of if we could get a room so that the board can come in and watch it. Like the last time we did it, people just came as they were able to, so no one was required to sit there for the entire time. So if that's a doable thing, then okay. Jermaine, is it actually the 26th through the 29th? Okay, I just want to make sure we have it right.
Event dates October 26th through 28th.
26, 28, okay. October 26th. All right, that's NISBA, right?
Yes, it is.
Okay,
It is the Annual Convention and Education Expo.
okay. So I guess we would need a motion to approve Jermaine to be signed up with the understanding that the rest of the board can attend as time sees them able to do so. So can I get a motion for that, please?
I'll move.
Can I get a second?
I'll say.
Is there any discussion? All right, all in favor? Aye. Are there any opposed? Okay, that's carried.
Thank you.
Yes, I will make a note to put that on my recap so we don't miss it. Okay, does anybody have anything else for comments? All right, I just have a few things. There were mandatory trainings from Safe Schools that was due October 1st. It's my understanding that not everyone has completed them yet. So we have to have you finish those if you have not, and if you haven't started them, you have to get working on them, please. If you have an issue with technology or you have an issue with not being able to figure out how to get in, just let me know. And if I can't figure it out, we'll get a hold of Erica for you. But those have to be done. If you're not sure, if you're one of those people, please reach out to Jen so that we can get that taken care of. Then.
That's the one with different sections, right?
Yeah,
Like
that's
first
the state
aid,
school ones.
blood.
Yes, bloodborne pathogens, Title IX. Yes, so just make sure that you have them done. Like I said, if you don't know, please ask. Then just a reminder that we have our board workshop, October 27th from 6 to 8. I would ask that you're please thinking of goals for this current school year that you would like to see us do. As I already let Erica know that we had discussed previously of data dive, being that we have all the new curriculum items in place. And then if there's any certain topics you want discussed or certain information that you would like covered during the workshop, make sure that you let Natalie and myself know that so that we can have this well-oiled machine ready to go that night.
Is it-
Also, yes,
Is that gonna be here?
Yes.
Oh,
yes, it's in this room.
thank you.
Concessions, if you signed up for concessions and you were a modified volleyball, those are not happening now. There are some of us signed up for Monday, October 20th at 6:30. Currently, I have Jim and myself. If somebody would like to fill in, Sandy's not able to make it now. So if somebody can fill in for us, that would be great. You want to help? Okay. I'll write you down and I'll just let Carrie know that we had a change of plans.
Yeah.
So that's gonna be Monday, October 20th at 6:30. And that is a modified girls soccer game.
Outside.
Yes, outside. And then lastly, PTA sent out the trunk or treat information. So you don't need to let me know right now, but be thinking about it so that I can get back to PTA if we would like to do that. It's Friday, October 24th from 6 to 7. So something, I'll send out an email and you can just respond, but I just wanted to make sure you were aware that it was happening. And if no one has anything else, do we need to go into executive session?
We do. We have to go into an executive session to discuss the employment status of a current employee.
Okay, so I would need a motion to enter executive session
I will move.
and a second.
I'll second.
Any last minute questions? All right, all in favor? Aye. Is there any opposed? All right. That's carried and we are in executive session. Board of Executive, does anybody have anything else? All right, then I would need a motion to adjourn.
Oh, Karen's gonna second.
And could I get a second, please? All right. And all in favor? Aye. We are adjourned.